Hey there, folks. You know, when I was young, I used to get a catalog from a company called Heathkit. If you're too young to know what that is, that company sold almost anything electronic you can think of in kit form. Test meters, console TVs, and in 1977 they started with computers. So I was salivating over the catalog for several years as the computers become more advanced and they looked incredible and I wish I could afford them. So I ran across an item that I couldn't miss because it was super cheap and of course it was in pieces. And you know me, I don't buy things that work. What's the fun in that? So what I got was this is from the Heathkit company. Now, back in, let me think, somewhere around 1980, Zenith Data Corporation bought the Heathkit company. And that's when they started offering fully assembled computers in their catalog. So what separated them was anything designated with an H in front of it was in kit form. And anything that had a Z in front of it was a Zenith product and it came fully assembled. So what this is a Zenith Data Systems model Z37, what was initially a double floppy expansion unit. The assembled product, the Zenith Z89, had one floppy. So of course, if you wanted to do some work that had to do with more floppies or ease of copying disk, you had to have an extra floppy other than one, so you got this. Now notice, these are not the original floppies. As a matter of fact, I don't think any of them are. You know, we got two half heights, a full height, but that does not look like the full height I saw in catalogs, so they may all be different. As you notice, it's pretty beat up. And the cover, well, the cover has seen better days. Luckily, it looks like I should be able to, with some clamps and some glue and a lot of swearing, I might be able to get this back in one piece. Well, there's a chunk missing there, so I should be able to make something and try to fill it in. There's a screw hole that's broken off. In general, I should be able to get that back into one piece and put it back on the face of that unit. Too bad the badge is missing. That would say Zenith instead of Heathkit. Now this thing, it looks like, yeah, this cover goes over three sides and it looks like it slips off either through the front or the back. Of course, look, most of the screws are missing. There's 4 left out of 8. That's awesome. Let's see what we can... Yeah, I know my screwdriver that I picked up is old and I think it's been chewed up by a dog. I wonder who did that. Huh? You hear me back there? All right. Well, with 4 of them gone, you don't have to watch me unscrew things for minutes on end. Okay, let's see what happens. Ah, there we go. What is this? Oh, look at that. It's got the badge and it looks like the pieces of case that's broken off. That's awesome. That will really help, and that, I love having that. Those screws, I don't know. It looks like somebody probably, this was probably in pieces. They were selling it from somebody's estate. It was probably in pieces and they tried to put together the best they could. That's awesome. But, you know, what can you expect? I got this from a seller for 20 bucks. I mean, the floppies are worth more than that, but I'd love to get this back together and at least look good. Of course, doesn't look like it's got, of course, the data cable, and it must have ended in an interface that was bolted on there, and that's gone. But it doesn't mean that this still isn't a great buy. I can fix the case, clean it up, fix the face of it, get it a little more locked down. And these are actually just hanging here from this one screw. Let's get those out. We don't need those in there. It's nice to have some spare half heights, but I don't want it on this unit. There we go. There we are. Well, why don't we take a look and see what we've got on the face. You know, gluing this together, I think I'm going to do it in sections and not the whole thing all at once, because I want to make sure I can get it as tight and as aligned as I possibly can. So I'm going to start up here in this corner, and we're going to put some glue on it, on one side anyway. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in place. And then I'm going to put a clamp on it. And I'm going to leave it that way. And even though it says super glue, it actually takes a lot longer for a good bond than you would think. So we're going to leave that, and when we come back we'll work on the next section of it. Okay, so far that joint seems to be nice and solid. So I need to move on to the next section, but I think I'm going to have to glue both of these at the same time, because once one is firmly in place and glued, I'm not going to be able to pull it apart enough for the other one to get glue in there easily without making a mess, and I don't want to make a mess. So I'm going to try to get this glued all at once, if I can. I'm going to do this one first. See, I gotta snap it all into place pretty much all at once. So I'm gonna put a clamp on that. Make sure it's in, I don't feel any. I'm actually gonna put two on, one there. One here. While they're being held, I might be able to put these on. Sorry, I can't tell. I think I've got all of the pieces that go there. I think also I'm going to do these one at a time, because the other two will bump in to the ones that are already sitting there and knock them over. I need it to be, each piece to have something it's glued to solid. Now I'm not going to put the other two on. I'm going to let that dry. I need that to be a piece that's solid attached to this, so these don't have any problem going on. So we're going to stop there, let all of this dry for a while, and we'll be back. Okay, while we have that drying, let's see if we can tackle this badge. It's got foam that's all glued on the back I need to get rid of before I can attach it back to the unit. It's also got a couple of sharp dents in them that I'm going to try to use a punch carefully to flatten them back out. Hopefully it won't look worse when I'm done. So let me see what I can do about getting this off. Okay, after a lot of scrubbing off camera, I finally got the foam off of here without doing any damage. It's nice and clean. Took a little more elbow grease than I expected, but it came out really well. Now, the last little thing I'd like to address is the three little pinpoint dents that are on this. I couldn't find a proper punch, so I'm just using a screwdriver bit turned around and give it a little tap here with a hammer. I'm doing it very carefully. I don't want to hit it hard enough to scrape the paint off the front from sitting on the table, but I do want to kind of flatten it out. Hopefully it'll help a little visually. I give it another little tap there. I've got three little spots on here I'd like to just give a little tap. There's one here in the middle. Give that a tap. And one here over on the right. Just not a big deal, just take a few seconds. Okay, took the clamps off. And this is what we've got. Very strong. It's not pretty yet. Oh, I managed to get the rest of these on, so there's no missing pieces. It does not flex in the slightest. So I think what I'll do next is first I'm going to clean it, and then I'm going to try to figure out what's the best way of painting it, because you know I'm going to have to paint it. At least the lighter gray. Get this other glue off from the label, just like we did on the plate. That should be pretty easy. But, you know, so far I'm pretty pleased. It's strong. It's one piece. There's no giant chunks missing except for where this screw went. That's a shame. But at least there's one here that will keep the front plate from being easily pulled out. At least it's got a front screw. All right, let's clean it. Okay, this is what I got it to. The WD-40 did a great job on there, just like the name badge. So that's great. I cleaned it up as much as I could. It's a fair amount better, but it's about as good as I can get it. What I think I will do with this is I'll tape off. This dark gray is actually a laminated piece of plastic on here that's just glued onto the face. It's not a paint. I'll tape off the dark gray, try to get as much of a color match as I can, and just paint the light gray, and that's it. You know, I mean, you'll be able to see the cracks, I'm sure, but really if I were to try to smooth them out, it gets rid of the texture that's on the plastic. And really I just don't want to go nuts on this, but I think really just a paint, you know, if you see the cracks, at least they're gray. It does not match the case anyway. This is kind of a blue-gray, and the case is more of a tan. Never did match the color anyway, as you can see. And really the next thing we need to do is take a look at the rest of it. Now notice, if you can, here, let me see if I can put you at a better angle. If you can see, that plate that's sitting on top has been bent. But I think it's because the two half-height drives he put in were a little larger, so he bent it. So I need to take that off and try to flatten that out, because the case screws on to here and to here. That front face does. So we need to straighten that out so the stuff lines up. Yep, I would say, yeah, that's bent. I'm going to go over, put this on my vise so I can control the rebending much more accurately, and I'll bring it back, see what you think. Okay, I think I got it pretty decently straight. Pretty flat. That's good. At least it'll line up. Next thing is, I need to unbolt this floppy. Oh, by the way, the data cable, it doesn't end at the back of the unit with a cable end connector. It's actually simply a floppy cable that's fed through the hole, and what's missing is a metal bar that comes up here, screws into these screws, and clamps on it to bring stress relief off of the cable. It was wrapped in rubber and everything. It was one of those really heavy-duty ones they used to do in the old days. We can at least assemble this and hook it up and see if the drive's okay. It's not like I've got a Heathkit computer, but just like the Model 2, I started with the floppy expansion unit first, and I guess that's what I'm doing with Heathkit. Oh, excuse me, Zenith. Remember, these were pre-assembled. Okay. Belt's good. It seems awfully, I don't know, it just seems really hard to turn. Okay. I'll leave the motor connectors attached for the time being. Well, it's really dusty in there, and the rails are dry as heck. I don't know if I can get some, I guess I can take the screw out and pull it off and try to get some lubrication down on that shaft, because it sure feels like it needs it. It's pretty darn tight. The rails are dry as a bone. It moves, so that's good. Doesn't move too bad, but boy, it needs some help along the rails. Okay. Okay. It doesn't really look that dirty. I took a close-up look at the heads. They look good. They're really not dirty at all, but I will hit them with a little cleaner on a Q-tip. Just a little light machine oil on the rails. It feels quite a bit better. That's good. Oh, and by the way, I did look up a little more information on the drives that go in here, and found that yes, this is probably an original drive. Even though they look different in the photos, I did find some photos of these very drives which is you know, a Tandem 100. Let's take a look here. I rarely take these off. I don't even know if I can get this one off. There we go. Sorry. It was off camera range. What I'm going to do is put a little light machine oil between the sections of the bearing. Very little. Just a drop, maybe 2 drops. And let's see. That did free it up. Oh, much better. Oh, shoot, yeah. That's great. Get some belt back on. Go this way. Yeah. Really, I think that's all we're going to do to it. The electronics look good. Clean the heads. Everything looks pretty good, so we're going to put it back together. Already blew it out with some compressed air. And I'll do a little cleaning to the case, which you don't have to watch me do that. And we'll start putting it back together. Okay, I've cleaned up the case pretty good. Got a little dust out of there, wiped it down. Same thing on the back. I mean, I'm not going nuts, just trying to get it clean. The last thing I'm going to do before I start reassembling though is I'm going to get rid of these. As you can see, this was originally made for 2 full height drives, and he was, I guess, prepping for 4 half height drives. But I'm going to put this back the way it was because that's what I do. So I'm going to get rid of these. It's just extra crap that doesn't need to be in there. Okay, I have got, this is what I got. It seemed like a decent color match. That's about as close as I'm going to get. I've got it all taped off on the front. And I'm going to give it some spritz out here and see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to do a couple more coats, and then I'll bring you back and see what I've got. Well, here's what I've got. Is it perfection? No. But it's a whole lot better than it was before. You know, I'm not going for flawless, but pretty acceptable. Yeah. I'm surprised at how good the color match. I mean, it's only a fraction off to what it was. I'm surprised I was able to get that color so easily. Okay, there's one more thing I'm going to take a shot at. I don't know if it's going to be worth it or not, but I don't know if you've seen the technique. You may have easily on the internet about trying to rebuild plastic with super glue and baking soda. So what you do is you put a layer of super glue around where you want to build up. Okay? And then you sprinkle some baking soda in the area. Just let it be heavy. Notice how it's, it's almost like snow. It builds up there. But what you do is you go ahead and hit it again with the glue. I know what my problem is. I've got a gel. I need to get a liquid. I don't think I've got any, so let me go get some. Well, even though it was kind of a mess, it actually did come out better than I expected. It is now even, as you can see, with the plastic. Might need to shave a little off the back, but really it fits. I just tested it, fits up against the metal very well. All I need now is I'm going to put something, I don't know, maybe something adhesive over top of this hole. And then I'm going to pour some down the hole with some super glue, and that way it will make something I can drill through and make a hole about that size. It doesn't look like it's going to be... I got the hard part. I'm really surprised. And this stuff it's as hard as plastic. So the YouTube videos are true. It works. So I'm going to put something adhesive over here, and I'm going to fill the hole and see what happens. Okay, all I did was put a little paint tape on it, and then I'm going to fill from this direction. I'm going to need a light. I know it won't help you, but it'll help me. Well, not bad. Covered it with the tape, put some through the hole, let it harden, took the tape off, drilled a hole, and it's very solid. Very, very solid. Feels just like the plastic. May not look super pretty on the inside, but you're never going to see it, and it's going to really help strengthen the case back together. Take a look. See if I can. There's the new screw support, and it fits just perfect. It really does. Let's see if the screw will, Okay, that's as solid as that's going to be. I mean, look. This is the way it's supposed to be put together. This first. Then this, believe it or not. You do have to put in the floppy through the front. Alright. There we go. Floppy's hefty. There. Well, at least it's not bent or warped or whatever. So it ends up like that. Not bad. Yeah, I got to clean that up a little. But now that I got the screw here, I can put the badge on. I need to clean that a little more. Oh, what's on it? It's almost like tape glue. It is. More tape glue to get off. And then another little floppy in there in just a bit. Okay, next, I got a replacement Tandon 100 double-sided. I checked it out, of course, checked for corrosion, cleaned the head, lubricated the rails, checked for anything that might be wrong, caps, anything like that. Everything looks good. So we put this guy in. Okay. Now, like I said, as you notice, just the fact of putting in the floppy drives strengthens the entire device. Okay, I noticed that I forgot to put the screws in the bottom. It'll be even more secure. I hope I have enough. Oh, and notice I failed to video it, but I took off, it had 2 rear feet on the back case that were awful. In the front, I don't know if it had any at all, but I put a couple there anyway, just to keep those front feet off the table, keep the paint from coming off that I just put on. So whether they were there or not before, I don't know. But there's 2 there, there's 2 on the outer case that you can't see right now. And it really helps with it being able to be pulled across the countertop without any drag. Well, none of them match, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that it makes this super solid again. I think that's how the whole face got broken in the first place. The guy threw in a couple of half-height floppies, didn't add all the screws, which put a whole lot of stress on this front face, and it busted up. So the next thing we need to add is a data cable. Now, I don't have one. This is going to be a straight through. It's not a twisted cable. So I don't have one, and it also needs to be fairly long out the back so it can reach a separate computer. And I don't have anything like that either, but let's make one. Now, I didn't have the cable, but I did have all the end connectors I need. 2 card end connectors and 1 end connector like that. So, first off, take the connector apart. And take a look. Hold on. Squeeze it up in there. So all you've got to do is make sure that the cable starts in the first one and ends in the last one. Then it should be in place. Make sure the cable's not crooked in there. Okay. Give it a slight squish so it'll stick for a minute, like that. And we're going to put it down into the vise. Okay. And notice I'm watching again. Is it still in place? It is. And now I'll give it a few turns until the teeth disappear and there's only cable in that gap. Okay, now back it off. And that's the way it should look. No gaps. It's clamped on the end like it should be. So we got a nice connector there. Now that I got one, I'm going to go measure on the drive how far the next one is up. I'll be back in a second. I went ahead and measured for the entire cable and cut it so I could put it through the other end. And I'm telling you, from what I've seen on the photos of an original with cable, this thing is crazy long. And that's fine. I'd much rather make one that's too long. At worst, I might have communication trouble, and then I could track it down to being the cable and shorten it if that's necessary. Both of them with the socket on the same end. I made a mark where I think I want to put it. It doesn't have to be that far away, but I did give it some leeway so it won't be a strain. I give it a little extra. And I'm seeing right about there. Should be plenty good. So let me get close enough to see if I've got the cable in the right position. And it looks like I do. It is sitting in the right place on the cable. I'm going to give it a squeeze to help get it kind of stuck there. Wait a second. Not yet. There we go. Not only does it have to be in the right position on the plastic backing, the plastic clamp, but it's got to be perpendicular to the cable itself. If it's a little crooked, the front row teeth may be fine, and then the back row teeth may be off. So it does have to be, make sure it looks perpendicular to the cable, that it's not coming out this way. Then make sure it is sitting in the clamp properly. Give it a squeeze. Put it in here. Open the jaws of death. Clamp her down just slightly before I make final squishes. Okay. Does it still look parallel? It does. It's kind of critical. You don't want to screw this up. Besides, pulling it apart, you'll probably end up losing the connector. You'll punch holes that you don't want in the cable, yada yada. So it doesn't hurt to look and look again and check again before you clamp down on this vise. I think we're okay, so here we go. Now you got to put some force on there, but remember, it's plastic. Don't go too crazy. But yeah, it does take quite a bit of force to make sure that's seated well. What do you think? Looks good. There. There. It is parallel to the cable. Remember, I cut this by hand, so it's not perfect. But it is, the socket is parallel to the cable. There is no gaps. You can't see any of the metal tines in the connector. This looks good. So we have a cable. All right, let's go put it on. Now, there's not a lot of complexity to this. Now it is set up where the right one is the drive A. So I'll put this here and this here. Fold it back. See, I made sure that there was plenty of slack. And then just feed it out the back. Got to plug the power in to the two guys. We've got them both plugged in, got them mounted right. We've got a brand new cable. ready for a computer. Now, just like with the TRS-80 Model 2, say I bought a new floppy disk setup without buying the computer first, because, hey, you can't beat 20 bucks, huh? But this will be incentive to get myself a nice H or Z89. So, all we need to do now is we'll put on the cover because we're done on the inside, and we just have a little bit of stuff on the front to do. Well, excuse the jittery camera, I'm holding it, of course. I plugged it in and it kicked my GFI that it's attached to. So, okay, I do believe we fixed it. All it was loose grounds to the drives, and that loose ground caused arcing, and GFIs are very sensitive to stuff like that. So there wasn't any kind of a short. There was no, it's putting out the proper voltage. It's got 12 volt and it's got 5 volt. It was that arcing that GFIs are sensitive to. So all I had to do was resolder those connections, clean out the extra leftover from all the cables that I pulled. We turn it on, and everything's still running. Okay, two things at this point. One, the floppy that was in here originally, this one that's still in the same position, when I tried to access it, the motor for the floppy was flying. It was 2 to 3 times faster than it should be, and I could not adjust the speed like you should have been able to. So I took off the motor control board, which this is exactly what one looks like on that type of floppy. And this is the pot where you adjust the speed. No matter what you did, it wouldn't change, and it was because the pot had a bad trace between it and the next component. So I put in a jumper, and it works now. It's adjusted to the proper speed. And next, also, now this is an older style floppy system. Back in the day, you had what you saw me make, a flat cable. This cable would go directly to the controller. Each floppy would themselves have a jumper that said, hey, I'm number 1 and I'm number 2. And the controller knew how to deal with it at that point with a flat cable. But soon, they ended up doing something different, and that's the twisted cable. And what that does is the floppies are set to be the same. Actually, instead of 1 and 2, they're basically told you're both B. You set them for both B, so the floppies are set to be the very same, and the cable is the thing that decides which one it wants to talk to. So you had a twisted cable after that. So this particular setup was for a floppy controller system with a flat cable. That means I can't test them out with that cable, because the controller still wouldn't know what to do no matter how I tried to adjust it. So what I've got on it right now is a twisted cable. I've got them both set to act like the same floppy, which is what you do with a twisted cable. I'll turn it on, and we'll see how it does. It's not a bootable disk, and it's telling me that. Get it down there where you can see. I'll try to access A. And it reads A just fine. Change it to B. And it reads B just fine. So it works perfectly. But since we know that it works, I'm going to reconnect the new floppy cable that I made, and it's going to wait for the computer that understands how to deal with it. Hopefully I'll get one sometime in the near future. Okay, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Now, this laminated gray sheet used to always have no holes here, It was a solid piece. The data plate, the nameplate went here, but there were no holes here. Now, I could get some more laminated sheeting and replace this and it would be covered, but what about that day when this thing has to come off again? And I've got these. Basically, screw hole plugs that will fit and cover up a hole where a screw is to try to be slightly more decorative. And what I'm going to do is put these here. Up. Look at that. That's going to fit. And you know what? We're going to, let me grab a small plastic hammer. Hold on. Actually, what I went and got was a small body hammer. Yeah, I work on cars, remember? Hey, there are things that are worse, you know? And that gives me a chance. It's a whole lot better to put a screwdriver under those suckers and pry them out and get to the screws than to have to rip through a face that I made by hand out of material it's hard to get. See? I'll paint them gray. I'll try to touch up. That's a little tough. There's not a lot I can do with that. But I'll paint these gray. I'll put these here. Put this here. And that's what I'm going to do. So that about wraps it up for the Zenith 37 floppy disk system. You know, I loved Heathkit. This is my first piece. Even though it says Zenith, it's still Heathkit to me. And I hope to have more in the near future. So it'll be sitting on the shelf, waiting and hoping for a Z or an H88 or an 89. But until then, it's working and it looks a lot better than it did, and that's all you can hope for a refurbish/repair. And thanks for hanging around and watching, and I hope you learned a thing or two, and I'll see you next time.